of having border instances, let us confine these trains, especially between sensitive countries like India and Pakistan, to ICD train. Let people not go to borders so that there is no chance for anybody to do any hanky-panky. Let it be sealed in ICD. Let the containers be scanned. Let there be border seals. Let there be RFID seals, connection given to both the parties, and let the scanners be there at the border points. Now, if you find that a container has failed the scanner, unload that container. Otherwise, let the container go. With these kind of things, since time is short, I'll request Chair to let everybody have a copy of this presentation, which makes some specific suggestions, basically related to procedure, customs procedure, IT procedures, and different procedures which can facilitate these movements and make this option a much more attractive option, especially for shorter distances. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, for sharing findings and recommendations of very extensive study undertaken at ASCAP South and Southwest Asia office, of which you were a key resource person. And as you can see, a lot of analytical work has been done to see the feasibility of these land routes, which can move our goods at a rapid pace in a much more cost-effective manner. But unfortunately, these things need to be made known and advocated much more extensively to make them happen. And so I'm sorry for rushing you, but because we're short of time, and but the point is made, and we will put up these not only the presentation, but the detailed study also in the public domain, so that people can look at them and take them forward, debate them and take them forward. So with your presentation setting the stage, let me move to our very eminent panelists. And to my right is Ambassador Gyan Acharya, former Under Secretary General of United Nations. He was actually directing UN's programs, special programs for landlocked countries. And in addition to the Istanbul Program of Action for least developed countries. And he comes from Nepal, which is also a landlocked country. So I want to turn to you, Ambassador Acharya, for your insights into the perspective from a landlocked country in terms of connectivity and how effectively landlocked countries can use the transit countries for getting their goods in and out of the country. So you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Nagesh. I think Mr. Anil Gupta had rightly set the tone for our discussions. I think for landlocked developing countries, especially in South Asia, when you look at the landlocked, I was very surprised and I'm very delighted as well that all the three countries are here landlocked countries. So when I say that, I'm definitely will be supported by our colleagues from Afghanistan and Bhutan. I think when there was a discussion on the SDG 9 in New York, when there was a preparatory work that was going on, I remember very well that we worked very hard with the member states to make sure that their issues, the infrastructure, all issue also remains very, gets a very high prominence in terms of talking about economic growth and the change in the country. So SDG 9 has a lot of reflections on the infrastructure development, and I think that shows how much their dependence, whether we talk about economic growth, whether we talk about welfare, whether we talk about cost of doing business for these countries, they are so much dependent on the connectivity. So connectivity plays a larger than actual part in terms of the the prioritization in the landlocked developing countries, especially the landlocked countries in South Asia. We are very happy that if you look at the budget of all these countries in South Asia, they put a lot of emphasis on expenditure on infrastructure. Now, the regional focus is also now moving towards regional infrastructure. And now if you look at the global, the World Bank, ADB, and all the countries, their focus is also now moving towards the global infrastructure development with the Global Infrastructure Forum. So in a way, we are happy that this focus is now moving at the national, at the regional, and the global level towards promotion of the infrastructure. That is a very good sign. Now, if you look at the logistics, I think it was very good that we talked about, the differences. Then I got a little bit, surprised that the cost of all these, this maritime route is higher than the surface. But then you are comparing that with the rail transport. That's the big difference. If you look at all the three countries, probably except Afghanistan, both India and, Nepal and Bhutan does not have, the real rail network. We have just an example of maybe about 20, 30 kilometers of railway network. So if you look at the surface transport, the road transport, then the cost of doing business is much, much higher than the countries which have a maritime border. So we have done, when I was there in the analysis we have done is that it is in fact about 30% more cost that they have to bear if they were landlocked. If they are not landlocked in a comparable country situation, they do not have to pay that much more. So this analysis shows that they have a lot at stake in terms of really getting connectivity. They have a lot at stake in terms of having the logistics. You rightly pointed out the South Asian logistics cost are very high. But that is an average, by the way. If you look at the, only Nepal and Bhutan, probably that's about 20% of the cost. I think that is the logistics cost. So you see how incompetitive they are, how difficult when we talk about promoting trade, how difficult it is when you talk about being competitive at the global level. Therefore, I think they are really focusing a lot on how you can have better connectivity, how you can have smarter connectivity, and how we can have a, the infrastructure connectivity in a way that it will promote our competitiveness. And then when you look at that, of course, India is a fulcrum around which we can all consider many transport corridors, both India and Bhutan, but of course Afghanistan is also looking at Pakistan, and we heard about that not being very possible because of political reasons. Then you have a Chabar and other ports through which you are doing it. But I think I will focus on the BBI, and this is very important region, then how it could be really taken forward. Now, for both Bhutan and Nepal, I think transport connectivity, smooth transport connectivity and transit connectivity both are very, very important. Now, if you look at Kolkata, of course, Kolkata port is not only a gateway for Bengal and the Northeast, it is an international gateway for Nepal and Bhutan. So I think having a better, the facilities at Kolkata port is very important for being competitive for us. This is very, very important. So modernization, digitalization, as well as, the congestion problem is very big in Kolkata port. Now it is very good that with India we have another Visakhapatnam port, but then it takes a longer time, really to go from Visakhapatnam port to Nepal. But we hope that over the period of time it will also have a better facility, and then it will also move on, in terms of our, being competitive through the transport connectivity. Second point that I would like to really see that, transit connectivity is equally important. If you look at the trade, both for Bhutan and Nepal, and we know it is very good that we have begun, Raxaul, Kolkata, Haldia, all that facilities are there, and thanks to the support that we are receiving from India, ICT is being developed there, which is helping us a lot. But we have to go still a long way to make sure that actual operation also gets really, the quickly done, and then more modernization, digitalization, and the reduction in the data, in the time and the papers, that would be very, very important. Then I think what we have also to look at is that how we can connect via India to Bangladesh port in order to really promote the regional connectivity again. So the eastern Nepal, Kakarvitra, Fulbari, Banglabodh, Chittagong, Mangla port has to be made competitive in order to really enhance this regional, economic, growth. Now, I think that would be equally important for Bhutan as well, and the same thing, applies to them. I think, coming from Bhutan and then going to Bangladesh. So, if you look at the, the three indicators, not only the cost of doing business, but also look at the competitiveness index of all these three countries, they are very, very high. So, it shows that there are more things at stake for the landlocked developing countries than other countries in terms of the cost of doing business. So there is a lost opportunity, and we really hope that with this more focus now on this transport corridor, as well as the investment in the transport corridor and collaboration among all the countries, we'll have our products more competitive, which will enhance regional value chain, because regional value chain is all about being competitive as well. If you are not competitive, you cannot be part of the regional value chain. That's why I think it will really help us. And what we really expect is that there is a political will, but it has to be strong and continuous and consistent political will in all the countries to invest more in the facilitation of infrastructure. Second, allocation of more resources on a priority basis, but also closing missing links. I think that is very, very important. Upgrading road conditions are really very, very important. And investment in modernization of soft infrastructure, regulatory measures, digitalization. I think that is real key to the transformation of the landlocked and the least developed countries. And finally, multimodal transport as well as the full implementation of the trade facilitation agreement that we all have, that will take us all towards the higher rate of economic growth and better integration. I think this is what we are all talking about, better integration. And just one word on the energy, because that is also one of the very important issue for countries like ours. We are very rich in hydropower and the natural, the renewable resources. But South Asia as a whole is very poor on the hydrocarbons. So there is a premium on hydropower. Bhutan and Nepal again are very rich in hydropower, but we have to have a regional framework. There is no regional power trade agreement in South Asia. Now this is the time that we should be really going towards that direction. And I think that will also encourage investment. That will also encourage the power trade between the countries in the countries around the region. I think there is a guideline that has come out, so we have to really move. It's a bit of a restrictive guideline that has come out from India. We have to be a little bit more forward-looking in terms of making sure that there is an open and liberal power trade regime, so that everybody can contribute to the energy security in South Asia as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for putting on the table some very concrete points coming from the perspective of a landlocked country, and what needs to be done, and how the transit could be extended to three countries, India, Bangladesh, providing the ports and access to landlocked countries on the eastern side, that is Nepal and Bhutan, and also touching about the very important agenda of energy connectivity, and how a regional power trade agreement could facilitate investments in the hydro resources exploitation of the region. So very, very important points, and thank you very much, and your extensive experience in all these issues is very much reflected in your interventions. Now let me turn to our friend from Afghanistan, Najir Kabiri Sahab. He is senior advisor to the finance minister of Afghanistan. And Najir, we are talking about landlocked countries, the special problems that they face. And Afghanistan is one of those, and also a least developed country. Talking from the perspective of Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is also getting integrated in the energy connectivity, number of pipeline proposals passing through, and CASA 1000 and all. So give us your, your insights from Afghanistan perspective about the transport connectivity, and if you like, touching upon energy, at the end, just as Ambassador Acharya did. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Nagesh Bhai, for the chair. Your Excellency Ambassador Sachin Bhai, Nagesh Saab, Solari Saab, I feel uncomfortable speaking in front of you, provided your seniority and depth of your academic knowledge and professional experience. But again, thank you very much for inviting Kabuliwala again. It's a pleasure speaking in front of you this afternoon. I believe it already ho chuka hai, 1:19 minutes. So with this, before I touch upon these two particular subjects in the agenda, which are transport and energy concerning Afghanistan, and how we play a rather positive role, not as a landlocked country, but as a land bridge, bridging country, connecting Central Asia to South Asia. Our narrative has been consistent in these forums. But prior to that, I think the panel prior to us did a fair job of setting the tone for all these discussions to follow. But adding to some of those thoughts concerning the political challenges and the realities on the ground, issues involving SARC, the ongoing war, and then terrorism affecting some of our member nations, one can add that it not necessarily is the media that's waging a war in this region. We have deep-rooted issues. 75 years down the road, there are challenges and complications after the divide of India and Pakistan. And we as an emerging state, trying to regain our position in the region,